All right, history people, we are going to do it again. We're going to do another edition of Stitches in a Story. Today we're going to talk about St. Patrick, and we're going to make this super cute like headband slash ear warmer for if you go to the St. Patrick's Day parade somewhere where it is cold. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We are going to go over kind of an overview and the supplies you're going to need. Then I'm going to teach you the stitches that you're going to need. We're going to do the first part of the pattern. Then while we're crocheting, we're going to go over the history. And then we're going to do the second part of the pattern and how to finish everything up. I'm going to put chapters at the bottom, and that way you can watch whatever parts you need to. You can skip around, you can just watch the history, just watch the pattern, whatever floats your boat. So, as far as supplies, we're going to make this, and it is green, obviously. You can use whatever color green you want. If you like this color green, this was Michael's brand this time. This was Lupin Threads. The light color green was number 01769. And then this dark color green here was the same thing. It was Lupin Threads, and it was 01708. Now, for the other green, I just used like some Walmart brand that I had sitting in my yarn box. And this is actually left over from the Crab Rangoon video we did last time. So maybe you already have that. You don't have to pick any specific colors. You could do them in Irish, like flag colors or whatever you wanted. But those are the colors I used. Other supplies you need. You will need scissors. You're going to need a tape measure. And then we're going to use two different size hooks today. We've got a 5.5 millimeter, and then this one I have is a 4. This is the one we're going to use for the shamrocks. This is for the headband. And then the other thing I found very useful were stitch markers. Now you want the kind, not the knitting kind that are just a whole loop, but you want these kinds that are kind of like a little safety pin, and you can open and close them. You're also going to need your tapestry needle, this here, because we're going to sew those 4-leaf clovers in later. As far as stitches go, you're going to need quite a few stitches, but I promise they're not hard. I'm going to show you how to do all of them. You're going to need your chain stitch like we did last time, and you're going to need a double crochet. That's what you use for the headband part. For the shamrock part, you're going to need chain stitches, double crochet, triple crochet, and a half double crochet. I promise they're not hard. I'll go through them, and remember, if you're struggling, you can always rewind and watch everything again. So because we're not going to use some of these stitches until the end with the shamrocks, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a quick square, and I'm going to show you those stitches on the square. And then when we do the shamrock, I'll kind of show you how it works in the shamrock. But that way you kind of have some idea what you're doing before we get started. Okay? Last time we talked about how to make a slip knot. We're going to start that way again. So remember, you're going to loop it over like this. This back yarn here actually becomes your loop. So you're going to pull this kind of up, pull this through, and voila, you get your slip knot. Remember, the whole point of a slip knot, you can pull it and it goes away. Okay, so we're going to make a slip knot like this. Now, remember, to chain, all you're going to do is you're going to take this side of the yarn. Remember, take the yarn that's attached to your skein, not the short end, and you're just going to loop it over and then pull it through. Oh, sorry. I was making it too tight because I was trying to show you. All right, so you're just going to loop over, pull it through. Loop over, pull it through. All right, so that's how you do the chain stitch. I'm going to do a few more chain stitches here for a second, and that way we can get the base started and I can show you the other stitches. All right, so I got a little bit of a square started so that I can show you better what we're doing. So last time we did the single crochet. We're not going to use that this time, but we're going to use the double crochet. basically the same concept, but instead of just going through and pulling the yarn through, you're going to loop it over once first. So for a double crochet, you're going to loop it over, stick the hook through your work, pull that through, and now you should have 3 loops on your hook. You're going to loop it over again, pull through the first 2, pull through the second 2, and that's a double crochet. So again, loop over, go through, you'll have 3 on your hook, loop over one more time, go through 2, go through 2. Now, the half double crochet is very similar, and we're going to use that when we get to the shamrock, so I'm going to show you that now. So half double crochet, you're going to loop over, go through your work like that, and pull it through. So now again, just like the double crochet, you have 3 loops on your hook. You're going to loop over again, but for the half double crochet, instead of pulling through 2, then 2, you're going to pull through all 3 at once. And that's a half double crochet. So half double crochet over, through, over, and then all 3 you're going to pull through. The next one you're going to need is a triple crochet. Again, same kind of concept. We're yarning over, pulling through, going through loops. But with a triple crochet, you're going to yarn over twice before you put it through your work. Put it through your work, pull that yarn through, and now you should have 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And that makes, if you can see it, that makes a much taller stitch than the double or the half double crochet. All right, so again, for the triple crochet, or sometimes called a treble, you're going to yarn over twice, go through your work, pull that back yarn through. You should have 4 on your hook. Yarn over again, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. The last stitch that you're going to do is called a slip stitch, and it's really easy. So for the shamrock, one of the things you have to do is a slip stitch. It's literally all you're going to do is go through the work where it tells you to, pull this back yarn through your work, and now you've got 2 on your hook. You're not going to loop over again. You're just going to take this loop that you brought through your work and pull it through there. It's kind of an ending stitch, or like an attachment stitch. So those are the stitches you should need for this project. So let's get started. Okay, for your actual project, all you're going to do, you're going to chain on 17, then you're going to skip the first 2 chains, go into that 3rd, double crochet all the way across, chain 2, double crochet all the way across. I'll show you here in a minute. All right, when you chain on your 17, you're actually going to make this part right here, and you're going to make a long rectangle that we're then going to stitch together to make our circle. Now, the cool thing about this is that means you can make your circle as big as you want it. So you can stop at a shorter circle and make one for a smaller head, make a bigger circle, make one for a larger head. So to give you kind of an idea, I measured my head just like I'd wear a headband. So I put it back here, measured it like this, and I got about 23 inches. Now, with 23 inches, my headband turned out to be 37 rows. Yours may not be the same. I'm just giving you an idea. That's about how many rows you're going to need if your head is as big as mine. When you are making your rectangle, it's very easy to just kind of put it on your head and see if it stretches around. You don't want it loose. You want it kind of tight, because that'll keep it stuck to your head. All right. Okay, let's get started before we talk about the history part. So we're just going to make our slip knot like that. For the headband, we're using our 5.5 millimeter. and we're going to chain on 17. So everybody get that done real quick. Chain on your 17. Remember, knitters, this is not a chain on. This doesn't count. All right, so 17. 1, 2. Okay, so we have our 17 chains, and now we're going to double crochet all the way across. Now, when we double crochet, it turns out to be a little bit taller than a single crochet. So instead of doing one chain at the end, we're going to do 2 chains to kind of get that height for the next row. So we need to do that when we start too. So instead of starting in that second chain, we're going to start in the 3rd chain from the end. So for your double crochet, remember, you're going to loop around. You're going to go 1, 2, 3, go in this 3rd one. Loop around, pull through 2, pull through 2. Now you're just going to do that to the end of the row, chain 2, double crochet all the way across, and we're going to do that until your headband is long enough to fit around your head. And while we do that, we're going to talk about the story of St. Patrick. All right, so St. Patrick. So this was actually kind of a hard one to research because I don't know when I thought that St. Patrick lived. I don't really know what I thought about that. But what I found out is definitely not what I would have guessed. So also, part of this, well, all of it, was difficult to research because there's just not a lot of documentation from the time of St. Patrick. And so what you get listening to podcasts, reading articles, things like that, is a lot of speculation. Now, a lot of it is very educated speculation. You know, they think, oh, well, this is what the archaeology says, and we can make a good guess that this is what happened, or this is what he did, or yada, yada. But we don't have a lot of documents about St. Patrick. We have basically 2 letters that he wrote. And from what I can tell, one of the letters that he wrote, the only manuscript that we have was from like 500 years after he died. So I did not manage to track down how they were pretty sure that it was his manuscript. But that one is called Confessio, and it's pretty universally accepted that St. Patrick wrote it. So anyway, St. Patrick was born maybe in 385, maybe in 387, maybe some other time, but probably sometime around there. Now, to put that in perspective, okay, like in America, we did not even have Incas or Mayans or Aztecs yet. We didn't even have Native American tribes as we know them up in North America. Well, not that the Mayans aren't in North America, but you know what I mean. We still had the Hopewell culture back when St. Patrick was born. In fact, if you all remember back to your high school days, if you had to read Beowulf, Beowulf was not even written when St. Patrick was around in England or Ireland. Was not even written. It was not even set. So when Beowulf was written, it was like historical fiction, and it was set like in the year 600. Again, St. Patrick was probably born in the 380s. Okay, so what was going on when St. Patrick was born? So first of all, geography lesson, because as an American, I am sorry to say I am not super familiar with the layout of the UK. But basically, what you've got is you've got a big island over here and a smaller island over here. Okay, smaller island over here. So on the big island, you have England down here, Wales kind of over here, Scotland up here. In the middle is the Isle of Man, and then over here you've got Ireland and Northern Ireland. Okay, so kind of got what I'm saying. So Britain, England, and Wales and such were actually ruled by the Romans when St. Patrick was born. The Roman Empire extended all the way up to the British Isles. Now, not all of the British Isles, because Ireland was not under Roman control, nor was the north part of the bigger island, which now we call Scotland, but that was not under Roman rule either. In fact, everything north of Hadrian's Wall was not under Roman rule because the Romans built Hadrian's Wall to keep those people out of the Roman territory. So the Romans were there, but in the year 410, the Romans got recalled back to Italy because Rome was having its own problems. It wouldn't be too much longer until the Roman Empire fell. So that left Britain kind of like exposed and open for the taking. So if St. Patrick was born in like 380, then think about the fact that by like 410, the Romans are leaving and things just kind of get messy. So we had the Irish on one side, and they would raid. They were basically a slave trading people at the time. We had the people to the north, which at the time were called the Picts. We had the Anglo-Saxons coming in, and so things got messy because the Romans kind of took care of all that and were defending everybody. A couple other interesting things I found out while I was researching this, just so you know, is that, you know, the legend of King Arthur? Well, like, most people think, it's pretty agreed, that there probably wasn't just one King Arthur, that it was probably an amalgamation of a bunch of different legends. But I did listen to a podcast, which I'll link below, that made a pretty decent argument for the legend of King Arthur actually starting with a Roman centurion, and his name was, I believe, Lucas Arturius. So that's a pretty neat listen to. But some of the other theories about, you know, the origin of King Arthur place him in this time period as one of the kind of kings, tribal leaders, kind of people fighting off these invasions from the other people in the region. So anyway, let's get to St. Patrick. So St. Patrick was born in the 380s, probably at some point. He was born, we don't know where. There's lots of different ideas as to where he was born. The most likely, to me, from the research I've seen, puts him being born in Somerset, or close to what is now Somerset, which is kind of the southwest of the bigger island, which is now like England, Wales kind of area. He was born to a Roman family. They were Roman, and they were wealthy Romans. His dad was a deacon in the church and also a kind of a tax collector. And his grandpa was actually a priest in the church. Now, at the time, being a priest or a deacon or a churchy person got you a tax break. And so a lot of Romans kind of beat the system and became churchy type people, even if they didn't really believe, because they wanted the tax breaks. So between the tax breaks and being a tax collector, his family was pretty wealthy. They owned slaves, they had a villa. He was pretty much living a pretty good life. And sometime between the ages of 14 and 16, things really changed for St. Patrick because he got kidnapped. Got kidnapped by some Irish that were raiding the coast and taking slaves. So he got taken along with a lot of his family's slaves and sent to Ireland. So he was sold into the slave trade in Ireland, and he worked for a guy for about 6 years. He did a lot of shepherding is what he did. So basically he was outside a lot, watching the sheep, protecting them from the wolves, etc., etc. And he says this is the time that he really started to get close to God, because his family wasn't very religious. Like, he knew all the stories. He knew the Bible as it was back then. But he wasn't really a practicing Christian. But when he was out there and in slavery, he got real close to God. So about 6 years into his slavery, he said he had a vision from God, or he heard God speaking to him, and God told him to go to the coast and there would be a ship, and it was time for him to go. So he did. He found a ship, he crossed the sea, ended up back in England, found his family. Now, this is where things kind of get a little weird, because he said in his letter, Confessio, that he found the ship, they were on the sea for 3 days, and then they wandered in the forest for 28 days, in England when they got back. However, even the slowest boat in the world should not have taken 3 days to get from the Irish coast to England. So there's some discrepancy there. And then once they got there, there should not have been 28 days where they were wandering in the wilderness. I mean, unless they were just truly lost and walking in circles. But they should have found a town before that. So there's some discrepancy there about why that happened. But supposedly, according to his letters, he converted the ship's crew during that walk in the woods. They were all starving and hungry. And they said, basically, if your God is so generous, why don't we have any food? And at that moment, a herd of pigs walked by and they all feasted and were happy. But anyway, he went back to his family. He stayed there for a little bit. So while he was at home with his family, he started to have dreams where the Irish were calling him back to them. They called him Holy Boy, and they were asking him to come teach them. So he decided to really start studying his Christianity, and he went to school. They are pretty sure that he went to school in Gaul, which is now like France. And then when he came back, he became a bishop and got sent basically on a mission trip to Ireland. And he spent the next 40 years until he died in Ireland ministering to those tribes there. He was not the first person to bring Christianity to Ireland. In fact, there was already a bishop in Ireland when he went. It's possible that he was the first person to bring Christianity to some of the northernmost tribes, but for the most part, Christianity was already there. He just helped popularize it. Okay, so he's known for a couple different things in Ireland. One of the things that you'll hear a lot is that he drove the snakes out of Ireland. He did not, because there never was any snakes in Ireland. Like, there's no fossilized snakes. There's no nothing. There are no snakes in Ireland. However, in the Christian tradition, if you remember, who was a snake in the Garden of Eden? It was the devil. So a lot of people think that that story came because it was a symbolic story, that he was pushing the devil out of Ireland because he was bringing Christianity into Ireland and kind of eliminating some of that pagan religion. There's also not a ton of evidence that he used the shamrock. So what you'll hear a lot is that he used the shamrock to describe how the Trinity, like Jesus, God, and the Holy Spirit, are all one being with 3 different parts. It's a good symbol, but there's not a lot of evidence that he actually used the shamrock in that way. He's also credited with building a lot of churches in Ireland, which actually might be true. So the thought is that because he was a Roman and grew up kind of under Roman rule somewhat, in a Romanized family, that he may have had some knowledge of kind of Roman engineering techniques. So the thought is that he may have brought some of that technology to Ireland, especially when you talk about things like building arches in churches instead of just a doorway, because that was a very Roman thing to do, and it added to the stability. And there's some thought that he was involved in that and teaching some of the people in Ireland those techniques. In fact, that is why he is known as the patron saint of engineering. Oh, another interesting fact about St. Patrick was that, you remember I told you he wrote that letter, Confessio? And we think of Confessio or like confessions as like, oh, I did something bad. So sometimes it was something bad, like you were confessing a sin, but sometimes it was just you were kind of sharing your thoughts on God and Jesus, kind of like, you know, you'd share your story at church about how you came to Jesus or things like that. In that letter, though, he does talk about some sin that he committed. He said the sin only took 1 hour. He never tells us what that sin was, but we do know historically that some of the other bishops tried to have him brought up on charges for said sin. So I guess let your imagination run wild. What sin could you commit in an hour that would keep you from becoming a bishop? I don't know, but it's there in the letter. It happened, but nobody knows what it was. He was actually never canonized as a saint, because canonization is a very specific practice that the Catholic Church does, and it didn't exist when St. Patrick was alive or right after he died. So he's kind of been grandfathered in, but he never went through that official canonization process. And then I think the last fun fact I have for you about St. Patrick's Day is that we actually have records of St. Patrick's Day being celebrated in the Americas as early as 1601. Apparently there was an Irish vicar that was there in the Spanish city of St. Augustine, and they had a St. Patrick's Day celebration. So according to tradition and what we know, St. Patrick died on March 17th in the year 461. So again, guys, I am sorry. Like, I thought I'd have more information for you, but so many of the sources are kind of all over the place. I tried to listen to some very strictly history podcasts about this. I read a lot on religious websites because obviously they tend to track stories about the saints. And all the dates were different. All the stories were different to some extent. And like, nobody has any solid answers. It was always like, well, we think that this is what happened, but nobody really knows. So I'm telling you, we think this is what happened, but nobody really knows. In fact, some of the people are saying that the great sin that St. Patrick committed was to lie about being kidnapped. They say that he did not want to take his father's position in the Roman kind of government or in the church, as it were. And so he just straight up ran away to Ireland. We have no idea. We will never have any idea. But at least, hopefully now, you know a little bit more about St. Patrick and kind of where and how he fits into history. Okay, are we ready? Do we all have our rectangle here? So finish it off just the way you did in the last video. So if you've never finished off a crochet project before, all you're going to do is pretend like you're making that last stitch, but you're going to cut the end of your yarn and just pull it through, and that kind of makes a knot. So when you're done with your rectangle, you want to kind of try it on as if you are going to wear it. And if it doesn't quite reach, that's okay, because you want it when you sew it to be a little stretched so that it stays on your head. Okay, so this is my rectangle. What we're going to do now, though, is we are going to make the shamrocks. And I like the white and this color. You make your shamrocks whatever color you want. All right, so I'm going to show you how to make the shamrock so you can get all the information you need from the video. However, I'm not going to write out the shamrock pattern like I usually write your patterns out, because it's not my pattern, and I feel like I should at least make you visit her website, because she has got some of the best crochet patterns I have seen out there. So I'll put a link somewhere up here, and at the very least it'll be in the show description. I'll put links to all of the resources I use down there. But her website is midwesternmoms.com. She's got recipes up there, crochet patterns, all kinds of stuff. I highly encourage you to visit it. I'm going to show you how to make a shamrock though, and then you can just make a couple of them, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to put them on. All right, so I'm going to move the camera down so you can see. For my shamrocks, I chose a smaller hook size. I'm using a 4 for the shamrock part. All right, so if you're somebody that has used a magic ring before, you could use that to start, but we're going to make a chain of 4 and loop it together. So start with your regular slip knot, and then you're going to chain on 4. So let's do that. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So now you've got this tiny, tiny little string of chains, and you're going to do a slip stitch from this chain into the first chain and make a circle. So for the slip stitch, all you're going to do is put your hook through here at the end, grab that yarn, pull it through your work, and then through your last stitch. And so let me make that big so I don't lose it, but see, that's going to give you a little circle like that. So for this project, I found it incredibly helpful to use a stitch marker and find the center of that circle. So I'm just going to put this through to mark the middle of that circle. That will help because our other stitches are all pretty much going to go through the middle of that circle. So now you've got your middle circle of 4 chains. And now you're going to, this is the pattern for each leaf. You're going to chain 4, triple crochet, double crochet, triple crochet, chain 4. So I will show you a video of what that looks like because it'd be kind of confusing, okay? So we're going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to do a triple crochet, but we're going to do that triple crochet through the middle of that first circle we made. So remember, for triple crochet, we're going to do 1, 2. We're going to go through the middle where that stitch marker is that you put in there. You're going to grab that back yarn, pull it through, and now you should have 4 on there. Sorry, studio dog just left. You're going to go over again. You're going to go through 2, go through 2, go through 2. Now you've got a triple. Now you're going to do a double. So chain over or yarn over, go right back where that stitch marker was, pull it through, just do your double. So instead of working through like a stitch, you're working through the middle of that circle. And then now you're going to do a triple again. So over 2, go right back where that stitch marker is, pull through again, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. And so now we've done our, you can see we've done our chain 4, that makes the outside of the leaf, and then triple, double, triple, that makes the inside of the leaf. Now we're going to chain 4 again and connect it to the bottom, and that's going to give us a whole leaf, okay? So chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so now we've got this chain, and we're going to loop it down basically like this, connect it to the bottom, and that's going to give us 1 leaf of our shamrock. So to connect it, you're just going to go through where that stitch marker is again, pull this, and you're just going to do another slip stitch just like that, okay? And so now we've got 1 whole leaf. You're going to do that 2 more times, and then I'm going to show you how to make the stem. Okay, so if you've done it 2 more times, you should have something that looks like this. This is your little shamrock, and now we're just going to make the stem. So to make this stem, you are going to just chain 7. So let's do that. We're going to chain 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then you're going to count up 3. 1, 2, 3. And in the 4th one, you're going to do a half double crochet. So remember, you're going to go over, go in, pull it through. It's like a double crochet where you're going to have 3 on your loop, but instead of going through 2, then 2, you're going to yarn over and go through all 3. Now you're just going to slip stitch in the rest of those chains all the way back to the beginning. So slip stitch here, slip stitch here, And slip stitch in this last one here. Oh, got tangled, hold on. Slip stitch here. Then once you do that, you're going to slip stitch again through the middle just to link everything back up. You're going to clip your end, pull that through, and you have your cute little shamrock. So now take a minute, go make as many of these little things as you want on your headband, and then when you come back, I'll show you how to connect them all and finish that headband up. All right, we're back, and hopefully you've made your little shamrocks. I decided to make 2 white and a green one. And we've got our little rectangle here that we need to put together. So what you're going to do, you're going to fold it in half and match these edges up. And you need your tapestry needle here. You can take the end of this and not have to weave it in. Now, if you're watching this and you're just starting crocheting and it's really hard for you to keep all of these pieces like together, that is okay. Sorry, studio dogs have got some ants in their pants today. Anyway, that is okay. You can take a whole separate string. You can weave these in, take a whole separate string to do it. This I just find is easier because then I don't have to weave them in. So you're going to fold that in half, and then you're just really neatly on the tops going to do like a little weave stitch, or a, what do you call this? A whip stitch right here on the edge in each stitch as you go down, and you wrap that other end into there. And you're just going to stitch it up to the end. Now, if you didn't leave yourself enough string, which maybe I didn't either, that's okay. You can add another string too, but just whip stitch it all the way to the end like this. Okay, and then when you get to the end for that last one, you're just gonna go through like this, just like you've been doing the whole time. And then when you have that loop, I know it might be hard depending on how much string you left yourself. I'm going to actually take mine off the needle. Okay, you have that loop. You're going to take this yarn, put it under your last loop, and that's going to give you a knot. And then you can be done with your stitching. So put it under that loop, make a knot. I'm done stitching it together. And now these ends are both sewn in really tightly. I can just cut them like that. Okay, so now you've got your headband. Like that. Double check right here if you want to make sure it fits on your head. But you should be good to go. And I'll show you how to put on the shamrocks. Okay, so we're ready to attach our shamrocks. And I picked the side that has the seam that looks the best to be the outside. So you can see this is the outside, this is the inside. I think this seam looks a little better, so this is going to be the outside. So this is where we want to put our shamrocks. You can arrange them like in a little row like this. You can do a little cluster like I did on this one. However you want to put your shamrocks in. You can also make them as tight as you want them to be. So like on this one, I left them really loose. I thought I would like that because I thought then they could be kind of like 3D. I don't think I actually like that. I think I'd like to have them secured a little more. So you can sew them in as much as you want. The cool thing about these is they give you 2 strings to sew them in. So pick which side of your shamrock you like the best. I like this side the best. And you're going to take that string, because see right now we've got one coming out each side. You're going to take it and stick it back through that center hole. And if your hole is really tiny, you can use a needle to do this too. But stick it back through that center hole. Make your shamrock nice and neat. And then all you need to do is you're going to put it where you want it and stick each of these tails through the shamrock and tie a knot, and then you have it where you want it. Now, if you're still kind of thinking about where you want them, tie it real loose, put them all on there, try it on, and then tighten them down. But that's what I'm going to do right now. I'll show you. I'm going to put these through here. I think I'm going to make this one in a cute little line. So I'm going to put these guys. And again, if you need a little needle, that's fine too. I'll put this one here. And this one is going to go here. Stick that through. And so now see, they're both on this side, and I can literally just tie a couple knots and stick them in there. If you are more of a professional crocheter and you want to do this more neatly, of course you can do the weave in and whip stitch thing. That's all fine. But if you just are making this for a friend that you're going to go to the parade or something, this is totally fine too. So I'm going to tie it a couple times. And now it's secured, but again, it's secured in the middle, so it's still kind of floppy. I'm going to go ahead and take some more of that string and kind of do a couple stitches around it to hold it tight. But I'm going to do that to all 3 of my shamrocks and have a cute little line, and then it'll be done. Okay, so we are finished. So I put a couple more stitches in a couple of these that were sticking up weird, mainly in like the little leaves and then in the stem to kind of hold them down a little better. But now we're finished. Now I can go to the St. Patrick's Day parade and not have to be cold, have a little ear warmer, and nobody can pinch me. All right, well, we will see you next time. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, please, and tell me in the comments if you like this pattern or you want to see something different next year.